All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to Unscripted Order. I'm Brian Smalls.
And I'm Dante Bug.
Well, look, this is crazy. Never in my wildest dreams would I've imagined that we'd be sitting here recording podcasts.
Right.
But here we
Yeah.
are. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I could do a podcast with anybody, but I don't think there's anybody else that I would rather want to do a podcast, especially like this, than you, Dante. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
definitely mutual. That's definitely mutual, man.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity to go on this journey with you. I think
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be exciting, man. So,
I think so.
talk a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish with the show.
Well, I think the main thing, like we discussed in a lot of our conversations before this, is kind of demystifying the role of being a judge. Two brothers from the 757, our various life experiences that brought us to the bench. Folks walk in the court, they see us in the robe, and there's automatically this thought that, quite frankly, everything probably went the right way or went very easy along that path. And, we want to share some stories about how we got to where we are and hopefully share some lessons with up and coming or aspiring law school students, aspiring attorneys, aspiring judges. Well, not even if it has to be in the practice of law, but any profession or anything you want to endeavor to do. So those lessons we learned from the track, classroom, or the football field. I mean, we're going to have to work on me doing this podcast with you with that jersey behind you, but I'll be sure in future episodes, I'll be sure to have more Maryland paraphernalia in the background. Because a large part of this podcast will be who went to the right U of M.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we'll get to that, though.
yeah.
We'll get to that.
Well, I think our listeners will know by the end of this kind of where both of us stand. But I
Yeah.
think we can probably look at the institutional rankings that
Oh,
support
there you go.
the school up
There
in
you
Ann
go.
Arbor. But hey, we're not going to get into that today. We're not going to do that. And we're going to try to keep it cordial.
Yeah,
But
we will.
yeah,
For now.
yeah, for now. But you know what? We also want to talk about stuff off the bench. I mean, both of us work out, so we'll talk about fitness, we'll talk about fashion. We
Yeah.
got to talk about that new Clips album that just came out. So both of us
Most
from the
definitely.
757, so
Most definitely. Yeah.
so it's gonna be a lot of stuff that we're gonna get into. And the cool thing about it's gonna be unscripted,
Yeah.
we just want to be able to talk from our hearts and share with people what's on our minds. So I'm excited. And so today's
Yeah.
episode, we're going to focus on our journeys to the bench. And so I'll let you kind of get started talking about what that looked like for you, and then I'll jump in right after. All right.
Okay. Definitely. Definitely. Well, I always tell, especially when I'm speaking to law school students or attorneys, my path to the bench was not planned. It was definitely unscripted. Before taking the bench, I was in private practice for about 11 years, doing primarily criminal defense and domestic relations cases. And I never really had any aspirations of being a judge. I initially went to law school to become a sports agent, and that was one of those things where I picked the University of Richmond, and there's no professional sports teams anywhere near the University of Richmond. So after 1L year looking for internships, and I could not find anyone in the Richmond area that did sport and entertainment law, I actually just waited tables after 1L year because I had to, pay for law school as I went on the installment plan. And that second year, I was peppering my resume to law firms everywhere and happened to meet an attorney at an end of courts meeting that had just saw my resume that day. And that's kind of what got me the first internship doing criminal defense. And that is what ultimately was the ultimately was the bulk of my practice when I was in practice with state and federal criminal defense. So I always tell folks you have to be able to pivot because this path to the bench the end goal was not to be on the bench. It started as being a sports agent. At one point I wanted to, continue running my criminal defense firm and expand that out to multiple attorneys. And kind of your career path sometimes will dictate itself sometimes. And it was really other people seeing it in me before I ever knew it. Folks would start approaching me as I had more success and notoriety on a lot of the higher profile cases I was handling. And they would ask, have you ever thought of being a judge? And my response was always no, a very quick no. But over time, as more people said that, it made me start looking at the role of judge differently when I went into the courtroom, and started observing more trials and seeing that, over time, I thought this was certainly a way that I could give back to my community, a different way to serve and a different way to be involved in the legal profession, especially when it comes to litigation and being in the courtroom. So the path to the bench was certainly not a straight one. There were a lot of other things I wanted to do along the way. There are a lot of ways that, I'm sure we'll discuss more. Just the process of becoming a judge in the Commonwealth of Virginia and having to put yourself out there in front of your peers, other attorneys. You're rated by bar associations. You're rated by your local delegation. And that level of putting your credentials up against anyone else who may want to be a candidate is certainly not an easy process. And I did it a total of 4 times before I was ultimately selected up here. So that path is certainly not a straight line. And I would tell you there were times when I quit. I said I was never doing it again. Right? I was never putting my name in to be selected for a judge again. They keep passing me over. This is not for me, right? Because if it was, I would have had instant success. But I think that's one of those lessons that you know very well. The success doesn't always hit the first time, and that was another lesson, another way to learn that in life.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy, because, you know, the journey to the bench is just so different for everybody who takes this journey. And, you know, for me, my experience, heck, forget, judge. I didn't even want to go to law school, really, honestly. So, so the last thing I was thinking about as a career path was that of a judge.
Yeah,
And, my background's in sports. I mean, you can see the jersey behind me. Um,
unfortunately.
yeah, it'll be there for the foreseeable future. But no, I mean, my background being in sports, I wanted to do something sports related. So,
Mhm.
I played cornerback at the University of Michigan. Um, I was it became obvious very early on, probably my first couple practices, that if I was going to go to the NFL, it was not going to be as a player. It was going to be in some other role of capacity, potentially,
Yeah.
front office type deal. And so, as I approached my senior year at the University of Michigan, I was trying to figure out, all right, what direction I was going to go in, because I had suffered some sports injuries while I was in high school, and thought that maybe orthopedic surgery was the route that I wanted to go. And I'll never
Mhm.
forget getting on campus to the University of Michigan. And, I was one of those students that in high school, I probably got by just because, I was naturally kind of gifted, intelligent, that type of thing. And studying wasn't really something that I really felt like I needed to do or had to do in order to be successful when I was in high school. But found out the hard way when I got to University of Michigan and took my first chemistry class that, this is a little bit more difficult than high school. And so I transitioned from orthopedic surgery to wanting to go to dental school. My dad was a dentist. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go that route. Um, and so I spent the next 3 years focused on taking classes so that could go to dental school. And the summer before my senior year at the University of Michigan, I took organic chemistry 1 and 2 at Hampton University. Shout out to the Pirates, home by the sea.
Mhm.
Um, and I took organic chemistry 1 and 2 there. And I can remember after I got done, I did okay in the classes, but I remember thinking to myself, like, do I really, is it, do I really want to be a dentist? Like, am I just
Yeah.
doing that because, it's what my dad did? And, when he retired, I'd be set up pretty good, to be able to take over his practice full time. And after, some deep soul searching, I said, you know what? I want to blaze my own trail. I want to go do my own thing. And so I was like, all right, I want to go the sports route. I want to not necessarily do the agent thing, but I was interested definitely in front office work. And so as I started to do research and look at some of the people that were in positions that I aspired to be in the NFL primarily, I noticed that many of them had law degrees in their background. They weren't practicing attorneys, but they
Yeah.
definitely had the paper on the wall in their office that said, "Hey, I'm a law school graduate," had that JD. So I decided ultimately, all right, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna bite the bullet, I'm gonna go to law school. So I go to law school, and for the opposite reason, I actually chose the University of Miami in South Florida because down there you've got 4 professional sports teams, and I didn't want to have to
Mhm.
pick up and leave South
Mhm.
Florida, uh, to go do an internship in some other area of the country, and so that was the place that I selected. And um, after my 1L year I went to the combine. One of my former coaches when I was at Michigan, Terrell Austin, he was my defensive back coach. Shout out to Coach Austin, who's DC defense coordinator for the Steelers. Um, Went to the combine, connected with him. He introduced me to some folks, connected with some folks from Miami Dolphins while I was in Miami. It just did not work out. It's a very, very
Yeah.
competitive field to get into.
Yeah.
And so I transitioned. I started working for a lawyer down South Florida named Ken Walton. Ken really mentored me, and Ken did some real estate. He did a little bit of everything, and bankruptcy, helping folks out who were in that area. But he worked with real estate developers, and this was back in the '05, '06 time frame, right before I graduated from law school. And so real estate was booming all over the country, especially in Miami.
Yeah.
And so saw, what developers are doing. Like, man, I think this might be the route that I want to go. And so I graduated from law school, come back home to Virginia, aspiring to be a real estate developer, had a couple of opportunities, did not work out. And so finally I said, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and take the bar. So I took the bar a year after I graduated from law school. So that was a challenge in and of itself. And so take the bar, um, pass it, and uh, the one job I said I would not do, okay, when I was in law school, was be a prosecutor.
Ah, that's funny.
It is funny. So the one job I said I wouldn't do was be a prosecutor, and I ended up first job, legal job out of law school was be a prosecutor. My actual first job out of law school was actually I sold timeshare during that year when the real estate development didn't work out. I sold
Yeah.
timeshare
Ooh.
in my hometown in Williamsburg. And as
Oh.
for folks who know, there's plenty of timeshare in Williamsburg,
A ton.
a ton. And I was terrible at it, Dante. I mean, I was horrible. They, selling timeshare, the term that they use is pitching heat. So, pitching heat is you tell them what they want to hear to try to get that
Yeah.
sale. That just wasn't me. I that was not who I was. And so,
Uh,
ultimately, in the day, I decided to speak to who would become a mentor of mine. At the time, she was Sandy Conyers, and she was a deputy Commonwealth attorney in the city of Williamsburg, James City County. And we ended up chopping it up. She asked me was I interested in being a prosecutor? I said no. About a month later, no bites on the job front. Called her back. Was like, tell me about the whole prosecutor. And so
mm,
that led me down a path where I ended up getting a job working for the Newport News Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Did that for 4.5, almost 5 years. And one of the greatest experiences I could have possibly had because I got to work in your hometown of Newport News.
yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
my mom's family is from. Proud graduate of Ferguson High School. Shout out to
Oh, go
Ferguson.
Mariners.
Yeah.
Go Mariners.
Yeah.
Ooh, my mom was class of 80. Go
Yeah.
Mariners.
Yeah. 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 So, getting to practice there in Newport News, I got a ton of experience. Got the opportunity to argue in front of the Supreme Court of Virginia during that time frame. And eventually, I knew I wanted to go into private practice, and I did. Got into private practice. I did criminal law. I did family law. And before I sold my practice, I was an estate planning attorney. And while I was practicing, becoming a judge was it was the farthest thing from my mind. I'll be honest with you, I was intimidated by the process. I didn't think I was worthy to be a judge. You know, when I looked at the folks who I went in front of, I was like, I don't think that's really me. I don't think that, I'm really built for that. And um, when the position that I ultimately ended up getting, when my predecessor, Judge Fairbanks, was retiring, I I put my name in it and just let the folks who were in charge know, hey, I'm interested. And it was during COVID. And so that was an interesting, dynamic to add to
Yeah.
it as well.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately in February of 2021, I found out that I was going to be selected for a position. And I know we can dive in a little bit deeper to talk about what that looks like. But I'm just super grateful and thankful for the opportunity to serve, especially now here in my hometown where I grew up at in Williamsburg, Virginia. So yeah, the journey to the bench was certainly not one that I anticipated. It was not one
Yeah.
that I um, thought, I was cut out for, but what God has for you is for you.
That's totally true. That's totally
And
true.
whatever the timing is, whether it takes 4 times or, you get it the first time around, it's just one of those things that everybody's journey looks a little bit different. So
Completely different.
yeah.
Yeah. You said a couple of things I didn't even realize we had in common, that especially in college with going to school with other aspirations. I started as a chemical engineering major. There was those
Wow.
early chemistry classes that made me realize this might be a little different than AP chemistry in Miss Sharp's class, in heritage.
There to high
And
school.
I always have to give the advice of actually reading the instructions and knowing what's expected of you,
Yeah.
being a collegiate athlete, being a D1 athlete, I'm recruited heavily, came to Maryland. I'm figuring that if I miss labs because of track beats, they're excused. I'm running on behalf of the university. And it's not until our exam study week that I sit down. I'm supposed to be studying. This is the first moment I read the entire syllabus for the class that says if you miss more than 3 labs and don't make them up within a certain time period, they're unexcused. And 3 unexcused absences from labs is an automatic failure. And guess who did not make up enough labs and had an automatic failure? In a chemistry class, I had to go back to summer school. I
To
had to
take
go
that
to summer
class.
school, no, not to take that class. I took 2 other classes in the summer,
Okay.
but I had to go back to study table as a sophomore, which
Ooh,
was kind of embarrassing. Once you
yeah.
hit a certain GPA, you don't have to be in study hall anymore. And it's like, well, I guess Bug didn't hit his GPA. It's I didn't read the syllabus. I
Back for the
just,
second time. Oh, man.
chemistry will get you. Chemistry will get you. But you also said something in terms of um, when you start thinking about that process of putting your name in, not thinking you're qualified or looking at other folks that are in the position and thinking, well, maybe that's not a way that I can serve. And I wonder, how much for you was not being able to see people that looked like you on the bench. One thing that really stood out to me, I started practicing in the Richmond area, and there was a decent amount of representation on the bench. And then I got to Northern Virginia, and it was not what I would have expected for the Northern Virginia area. And I think when I started looking at the role of judge, it was the judges that looked like me, the folks that I could relate to, that really inspired that sense in me that I'm sure their path is something similar to what mine was. And if they can do it, then perhaps I can do it. And I just wonder, being in that area, especially where you sit on the bench now, how much of that might have played a role for you in that self-doubt of whether or not you could serve in that role.
Yeah, practicing in Newport News, there was a fair bit of representation in Newport News, both at the district court level as well as the circuit court level. And then, I practiced in Hampton as well. Honestly, my practice took me throughout the 757. So
Yeah.
I saw judges who looked like me. And not that that's a prerequisite, but, like you said, it's one of those things that it encourages you. It's just like when you're a kid, you see,
Yeah.
a ball player that, you aspire to be like, and you start to try to emulate them and what they
Yeah.
do. And so,
Yeah.
there was plenty of representation that I saw on the bench. Now, uniquely in my hometown, in the history, the jurisprudence history, the city of Williamsburg in James City County, they had one black judge, and he was a substitute judge. Shout out to the Honorable Judge William T. Stone, who in 1968 it is believed that he was the first black judge appointed in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Um, and, he served in that capacity for, I think, a couple of decades as a substitute judge. But they had never had a full-time black judge in the city of Williamsburg and James City County. And so it wasn't until my appointment in 2021 that I became the first African-American judge full-time for the city of Williamsburg and James City County, which is crazy considering that we are the birthplace of America.
You think about that history and, the fact that we can say we were the first or I was the third ever in a county like Fairfax is really saying something, man. So, but I think that's just a testament to the path, being able to kind of forge that path when perhaps it has not been fully developed in front of you,
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yes,
it's been a journey. It's been a ride, and every day is different. We'll talk about this on other podcasts, but we see some interesting stuff,
Oh, every day.
Every-
I always say there's never a dull moment
No.
in the circuit court.
Yeah.
There's never
Yeah.
There's never a day like, oh, this will be routine. And, you have your days where perhaps you're not in court and you can focus on administrative work
Sure.
or behind the desk work. But, there's a lot of interesting things that you see.
Yeah,
A
and
lot.
we'll tell some stories, and
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
protect the innocent. But it's just one of those things where there's never a boring day, and I'm so grateful and
Yeah.
thankful for the opportunity to serve in the capacity I get to serve, and to do it in my hometown. I mean, you can be a judge in any community, but
Yeah.
to be able to serve in the town that I grew up in, and to have an impact on the families and the young people that I come into contact with in the JDR court here in Williamsburg, to me is special. And, sometimes it can be a tough job. It can be a difficult job, but it's a job, that I relish the opportunity. I get up in the morning. I'm excited about coming to work. There's never a boring day, like you said. There's all, when you think, hey, I got a light docket today. Yeah. All it takes is one case.
That's it. As soon as you say it.
Yeah. That, knock on wood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve in the community that I grew up in. So, yeah, I mean, it's what it is. So, was there anything that I guess maybe shocked you or surprised you about your journey to that kind of stands out in your mind?
In terms of the journey, I mean, I remember it being a second full-time job, especially here with our delegation and the number of folks that were putting in for the position, and trying to run a law practice, come home and parent, take care of all of my nighttime work from whatever cases I had to prep for the next day. And I remember sitting before my laptop, sending out emails to people at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., asking for them to write letters of support on my behalf. So kind of the grueling aspect that went in because, before as an attorney, I would see people that put their name in, we would vote on them, but I didn't have a full understanding of the amount of work that it took to really be successful in that competitive process. And then being on the bench, I think what really, really stands out to me and always continues to surprise me is the off the bench work, the administrative work for the circuit court, the number of decisions that we make, appointments to county boards, and things that we weigh in on, that when you're in the process, you really don't know as a part of the job. You always see the front facing, the court part of what it takes to be a judge, but it's the off the bench administrative duties, the way we have to work together as a collaborative unit of a total of judges. We have 15 circuit court judges in Fairfax, so to get all 15 of us on the
Wow.
same
Okay.
page, and that
I guess I
dynamic.
didn't realize I had
Yeah,
15 up there. Wow.
yeah, and that dynamic, and it's funny when I first got there, people would say, we have 15 judges and 30 different personalities or opinions, and it can be
That's
that
funny.
depending on what the subject is,
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate in where I am is that we, even with the number of judges, we're able to work together collaboratively for those things. But I just didn't realize how much of the off the bench stuff was a part of the job. Um, and then I think, I had you mentioned a substitute judge before. I had the experience to substitute judge before. And I think a lot of times in the path to taking the bench in your interviews, you talk a lot about judicial temperament, about having the skill set to be able to do the job the right way and keep your cool. Well, it's one thing to say that you have it, but it's another thing to actually have to demonstrate that when you're in a hearing, you've made a ruling, or perhaps you're trying to make sure you're maintaining order in a courtroom, and people are, for lack of a better term, just going off on you, right? They don't care that you're wearing a robe.
Right,
They're
right,
not trying
right,
to hear
right,
what you're
right,
saying.
right.
Like
Nothing.
that's not it today, sir. And I don't care what you or this deputy say. And that can be something, because we're all people. You put on that robe, you do not become any superhuman form of anything. You're still a person. You
Mm,
still have emotions. You still want a certain level of respect that you try to express to other people. So some of those have been the biggest shocks of how to manage those things when you're obviously in this forward and public position. So maintaining your cool, maintaining your judicial demeanor, but also the outside of the courtroom work that goes in.
yeah. So I concur with you that the amount of work, time, energy, and effort that goes into just uh, you know, getting your name in the mix. And once it's in
Yeah.
the mix, staying in the mix and staying first for front of mind for the people who are ultimately making the decisions. I definitely did not. I guess I did expect it because I saw other people do it, but it's almost like law school. Until you go through it, you don't know what that experience is
Yeah.
like. You know. But so I'm gonna go a different direction. Um, One of the things, and for those of you who don't know, when you ultimately, um, I guess when your name kind of gets to the top of the list, you ultimately end up having to go to Richmond, in order to speak to your delegates and senators, to basically go through an interview process. And so my interview was a little bit different in that it was during COVID. So I didn't actually have to go to Richmond. Everything was on the computer.
Virtual.
Yeah, everything
Yeah.
was virtual. And so I remember having a conversation with, um, some other people who had been through that process. And was like, hey, don't worry about it. It's going to be in and out, maybe 5 minutes, a few questions or whatnot. You should be good. And I remember the way that it was set up was because we were doing it virtually, um, they kind of had different time slots for us. And I was towards the end. Um, so because it was virtual, I could actually hop online and actually see the interviews that preceded me.
Oh,
And the very first person that interviewed for a position got grilled for about almost 45 minutes. Okay, now I was told that this was going to be 5 minutes and we was going to be in and out. And the very first person
yeah.
grilled for 45 minutes. And it was members of the public that had come out against this person. And, there was, folks up in Richmond who had a lot of questions about this individual. And I'm sitting there thinking like, hold up, this is not what, this is not what they said it was going to be like. And so, it was one of those things. And then I think if it wasn't the next person, like the third person that went, they got a lot of questions too.
Uh,
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not what I anticipated. So I'm getting a little nervous before it's my turn. And so finally when it got to me, it had kind of simmered down a little bit, and more of kind of what I expected it became over the course of time. But those first few people who went, there was, I guess, some questions that, folks wanted answered.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got up there, I talked more probably about Tom Brady being my teammate at Michigan.
I know you did. I know you
And,
did.
and not because I offered it, but one of the senators is like, so what's
Brought it up.
this? What's
Yeah.
this about you
Yeah.
played football at Michigan and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So what kind of guy
It's
was
funny.
he,
It's funny because I watched your interview online because it was
Okay.
COVID. I knew that, and I knew some other folks that were up at the same time as you.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it was a proud moment to see you up there. But I knew the Michigan football was gonna make a way. Only you could go to the General Assembly and talk about Michigan
football. Go Blue. And I'm happy to do that in any time. I'm sure we'll talk about some more of that on this podcast. But yeah, so that was surprising. That process was surprising. I think the other thing that's a little surprising and can be a little nerve-wracking as a judge is when you are sitting up on that bench, okay, looking out at the people, and you are the only person there sitting up on that bench, and everybody's looking at you. It can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
You always have to be on. You have to watch your facial expressions. I've talked to some people who say, when you're up there, you're kind of stoic. Couldn't really read you. I was like, well,
Right.
that's actually probably a good thing because it's kind
That's
of
a good thing.
yeah, I think it's kind of what
It's
I'm
a good
going
thing.
for. And
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things where, honestly, it can be a little nerve-wracking to be up there. And my biggest fear is either going up to the bench and tripping, getting up there, or stepping
Ooh.
down and
Listen,
taking a spill.
let me tell you, my first day as a substitute judge, and this is pre-COVID, so this is 2016. So,
Okay.
Fairfax traffic court dockets will have
Ooh.
200, 225
Yeah,
cases,
a lot of cases.
15, 20 DUIs. I mean, you're talking audience full of people. So I come on the bench, I'll rise, Honorable Dr. Bugger, everyone in the courtroom stays standing pretty much until you sit down.
Yeah.
And I go to stand in front of the chair, and it's one of those office swivel chairs, and my robe catches the chair and twists the chair a little bit. And as I go to sit down, there is no chair under me. And it just so happens that my right hand catches the left arm rail of the chair because it's spun that far, and I catch myself.
Okay.
I'm in a full squat in front of 220 some people and push myself back up. And that was my introduction to the bench. Is that the worst fear almost happened immediately.
The very first day, right out the
and
gate.
then I guess after that, I got over it. And I've tripped a couple of times since then. I tell it's not about perfection. We're still human, but that tripping and falling is a big concern.
Yeah, I try to take bigger steps now when I'm getting up there. It's kind of because it's like I think 1, 2, 3 steps, and the steps are kind of longer. So I step up on one platform and then up to another platform, and
folks would never know. Just getting up there is a trouble.
It is, and then when you got the robe on, it can be something else.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It definitely can.
Yeah. So I mean, that's to me. I think those are probably two of the more surprising things, of being a judge. So, but I want to pivot just briefly, and thinking back, you've gone on this journey, and obviously you still got a ways to go. What? Today was I'm an adjunct professor at the College of William and Mary, and today was first time meeting my students for this year. This is my 4th year teaching at the College of William and Mary. But as we enter into this new year, I couldn't help but think about my time as a 1L at the University of Miami and what that experience was like. And I can remember distinctly 2 different days, one during first semester, one during second semester. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? This is dumb. I don't have to do this. I could go just live a normal life and not put myself through the stress and the anxiety of being a law student and then going to take the bar. Like, I don't have to do this. But, in hindsight, obviously it's worked out. But if you could give maybe like one or two nuggets, to, yourself back when you were a 1L, what would you tell yourself? And maybe this is you telling other, 1Ls or folks who are in law school now or aspiring attorneys. What would
Yeah.
you tell yourself?
I think that the ultimate advice would be it's going to work out, and you're not going to be able to see that in the moment. A lot of the pathway through it, you may not be able to see it. You talk about remembering distinct moments. I remember orientation very well. My nephew is actually starting at William and Mary
Oh,
Law
and I
School.
met him
Yeah,
today.
shout out.
I
He
met him
told me.
today.
He told me.
Yeah,
He told
yeah.
me. He told me. Shout out to my nephew, Chris Holloway. He's
Chris
next in line in the
Holloway.
family in the
Yeah.
legal profession. But I remember at orientation, I mean, we're in the moot courtroom at Richmond, and our dean of admissions, Dean Rahman, is, she's doing some kind of introduction, and she's asking, how many of you all are nervous? There's 130, 140 people in the top tier. I'm the only person that raised my hand out of 140 people. And I was like, I can't be the only nervous one, right?
Uh-huh.
But what you find out is, so much of law school, because you've taken people that are used to being overachievers, top of their
Sure.
class in undergrad and high school, and you put them in this kind of crucible, and then you grade them on a curve against each other, and you rank them, right? A part of law school is a mind game. Is your classmates acting like they know what's going on, acting like their parents were, and that's one of those things where we talked about sometimes not feeling like you're equipped for it.
Yeah.
And you go to law school with folks that, my dad's an attorney, my mom's an attorney, my dad's a judge, or I interned at this law firm, or I worked here, and they have all these different experiences that, coming from the East End of Newport News, I did not have. Our experience was, family members going to court for various court matters,
Right.
really and truthfully,
Yeah.
But I always remember we had, obviously dating ourselves because we've been out of law school 20, almost 20 years
Don't
for
say
me.
that.
Yeah, next year is 20, right?
Wow.
But that first exam where you had to do it at your desk and you had to print it out and get it back to the professor's office at a certain time, and the way people were melting down in the hallway because their printers were not printing, I mean, tears and
Yeah.
running. And it
Yeah.
was one of those moments where I thought to myself, in the midst of all of this chaos, and I cannot really fully describe to you how chaotic it was,
Yeah.
as I printed mine, no issues, turned it in 8 minutes early, I'm thinking, I'm going to be all right. It's going to work out. It's going to work out. And you mentioned something else about putting yourself through this and going through the bar exam. Law school is a tough weeding out process in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then on the top of that, you study and work hard for 3 years, and then you have to take the next 3 months and study and work even harder than you did in this kind of confined, concentrated, this is the biggest test or exam you'll ever take in your life. All of your friends are doing it. We had study groups. We carpooled, so we all would hold each other accountable. And, I went down to Roanoke the first time I took the bar exam, and I did not pass the bar exam. And
Wow.
you talk about a blow for
Oh my
someone that
gosh.
is
Yeah.
used to success, that anytime I put hard work into it, and similar to you, in high school, I don't recall having to study much.
Yeah.
I felt like I picked up most stuff by osmosis.
Yeah.
If I was in there
Right.
and took notes, I would
Just getting
remember
in
it
there. Yeah.
for the test. It was
Right.
just, if I showed up to class, I was going to be all right. And failing that bar exam, man, is a hurting feeling. I got the results on the day we were throwing a surprise birthday party for my mom, and boy, you talking about ruining a birthday party, because I cried
Wow.
and cried. And again, one of those moments where I quit. That day, I said, I'm not taking the bar exam again. I'm going to do something else. The practice of law is not for me. The Lord did not intend this for me, because if he did, I would have passed this exam. And I probably sat in that for, 3-4 days.
Yeah.
And got over it, because, the Virginia State Bar there, I don't know if they still do it, but when you don't pass, they give you your score on one side and say, don't call us. We've already recalculated. And the other side is an application to take the
The
exam
other way to hit the new
Yeah,
exam.
so-
Right.
Yeah, so here you go. Sign up again. And signed up the second time, and that was an experience too, because by then, all of my classmates that I had studied with, they were practicing attorneys, and I'm working at the firm I was working at. I didn't get the pay increase I was supposed to get when I passed the bar exam, so I'm working during the day, trying to study at night. But it all works out. you know, and I spoke to a lot of folks that were not successful the first time around, and they would always say the same thing. Once you're in practice, your clients do not care how many times it took you to pass the bar exam.
Yeah.
They need you to fix their issue or address what's going on. And heaven knows over my career, I've been able to pay that forward to other people that have not been successful the first time around. So my advice to myself entering law school would be know that it's all going to work out. I was very big on knowing what was for me and what was not for me.
Yeah.
I knew very early on I did not have aspirations to work in big law. I never, when it came time for, I don't even remember what they call it, but the note or the problem set that you had to do to try to get on law review, I just didn't pick it up. I wasn't trying to put myself, I didn't think law review just seemed like more work. And it didn't,
Right.
you know, I'm coming here to be a sports agent. I don't need that. But there's something to be said about doing what is working towards your own goals and not other people's goals, because when it gets tough, it's going to be easier to quit if it's someone else's goal. If you're just doing it to keep up with everyone else, or this is what they told me I need to do, these are the boxes I need to check. Law school's too tough to just be checking boxes, man.
Yeah.
You have to really want to be in it for something that is your ultimate goal, that you know these long nights are going to pay off. So not doing it because of everybody else wanting to do it, and knowing as long as you're working towards a goal daily, even when you sometimes quit, give up, and get back to it, that it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see it. And that's the same in your legal career. Neither one of us, when we first started out, knew where our legal career was going to end up, and still don't know where it's going to go from here. But it all works out. It all works out.
Yeah. And I won't tell the story because it'll be for another podcast, but how we ended up meeting for the first time. It's a funny story.
That's a great one. That's a great story.
It's a funny story. A little embarrassing for me, but hey, you know,
That's
it
awesome.
is what it is. We'll talk
It
about
was
that.
it was authentic.
It was very authentic. And we'll talk about that on another pod. But for me, if I could go back and talk to myself, you know, I similarly, you know, yes, it's going to work out. You know, when you're going through, you know, the journey, it does. It seems overwhelming. And, you know, long night studying and getting back exams, and you didn't get the grade that you wanted to. And it will ultimately work out. You got to keep pushing though. But you know, for me, you know, yes, it will work out. But I think one of the things oftentimes when people go to law school is they've kind of already got it in their mind, like, okay, I want to be X.
Mhm.
You know, I knew, hey, I wanted to get into sports law. I wanted to, you know, be front office personnel. But the thing that law school does, it exposes you to so many areas of the law, and you get the opportunity to see different things. So, you know, my advice to me, and I guess it would also be to other either aspiring law students or folks who are already in law school, is, you know, just realize, understand the law is broad. I mean, it is wide, and there are so many different things that you can do. You know, don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself right out the gate. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with aspiring to do, you know, certain work. But realize and understand that if you don't end up going down that path, it's okay, you know,
Mhm.
because there's so many different rewarding ways to practice law. Or you may ultimately end up not practicing law. There are a lot of folks that I know that went to law school, aspired to be attorneys, and ended up doing something totally different after they got
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
So just realize and understand that, you know, um, don't think that whatever it is that you think that you want to do going into law school, that you have to do. Um, because I think that you might be selling yourself short, because there may be something else that you actually fall in love with. Um, and, you know, just be open to the idea or the concept that maybe you don't know what you want to do. And, you know, be willing to explore the different possibilities out there. So,
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents, if you will.
There you
Um,
go.
yeah.
Spoken just like an adjunct professor. I like it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, indeed. This is, final segment of the show, where we just kind of talk about um, something that, maybe just kind of speaks to us. So, Bug, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Is there anything, recently that you, did or gotten into that that's excited you, something, just
Yeah.
anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I recently had the experience it's the 20th anniversary of Young Jeezy's first album, TM
Young
101.
Jeezy.
Yes, Young Jeezy. And he was at the Altria Theater in Richmond. And I
Okay.
went with my two younger twin brothers, Charlie and
Okay.
Charles. And, it was a great experience. And the beauty of this is, I've gone to some 20th or 25th, 30th anniversary shows of albums that we listened to in high school and college.
Mhm.
But this one was Black Tie. It was a black tie event. He
Okay.
performed with an orchestra. So it was just beautiful to walk in and see everybody dressed in their best. Folks my age, you got the gray hair popping, the tuxes, everybody's looking good. The orchestra was going. I mean, the energy from the moment I walked in to the moment we left, crazy energy in there. I am a big, big fan of sports and music.
Yeah.
My best vacations are around, going to see one of my favorite teams play or going to see an artist or a comedian that I like. So it was just a great experience. Travel sucked on 95 North to get down there. I left straight after my docket. I got down there and realized I didn't have my tuxedo pants, so I had to buy
Oh
some
man.
$25 slacks from K&G. It was an
Shout out
experience.
to KNG. Look, can we get
Shout out to
can
K&G.
we get a sponsorship, KNG?
I don't know, but K&G got good
They
prices on
came through for
last
you,
minute
huh?
slacks. Last minute slacks for $25. I was surprised. I was pleased by the price, but it all worked out, man. It was just a great experience, to like I said, be in that room with that kind of energy, seeing artists that I've listened to for a long time but never seen perform before. So, man, if you can make it, I know he's going to be in DC in a couple of weeks. If you can make it, that's the place to be, man. But how about you, man? What's something that stood out to you recently?
Ooh, so I had the opportunity about, I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now. Um, in the city of Virginia Beach, they have been hosting this Black philanthropy celebration. And
Okay.
this was the 8th celebration of its kind since they started doing this. And it's the Hampton Roads Community Foundation that puts this on. And it was amazing. When I tell you, it was held at the Sadler Center in Virginia Beach. There were people from all walks of life that were there. Um, there were vendors there who were selling things and promoting their various nonprofit organizations. And the event was highlighted by a panel of folks who, kind of talked about their journeys and why it's important to give back and not just money. I think when people think about
Mm-hmm.
philanthropy,
Mm-hmm.
they think, you got to give a ton of money to be a philanthropist. And you know what? People give of their time, their energy, their efforts, their talent. And that is just as philanthropic as, giving money. Now to make things run, you do need to
A little bit.
you got to have some cheddar. But the reality of the situation is that it was really cool. And so, there were 2 people that I knew that were one really, really good friend of mine, a guy by the name of BK Fulton. BK is a former president of Verizon Virginia, Virginia Tech grad. He uh, is the founder of Solidify Productions. It's a movie production company out of
Okay.
Richmond, Virginia. Really good friend of mine. And so actually his father-in-law is William T. Stone, the
Oh,
judge who sat here in
yeah.
Williamsburg. And so his wife, Jackie, is a partner up at McGraw Woods, and they're just really, really good people. So when he posted on social media that this was going on, I was like, oh man, I gotta make my way over there now.
Yeah.
You know what it's like traveling to the beach when you got to go through that Hampton Roads Bridge tunnel.
Yeah.
The devil tried
Yeah.
to he tried to trick me that day, like, you don't have to go.
Right.
You know what the traffic's
Yeah.
gonna be like.
Mhm.
But I powered through, and then actress and comedian Coco Brown was also
Okay.
on this panel as well. So it was BK, Coco Brown, and I had been seeing Coco Brown for years and different things, and I didn't realize she was from Newport News. I didn't realize she was from the
Yeah. Yeah.
757.
Yeah.
And actually, I wish I would have said something because I met her after the show. But one of my shows that I've been watching here recently is 911 with Angela Bassett, but Coco
Uh-huh.
Brown plays a character on 911. She's had a recurring
Okay.
role on the show, and so it was cool to meet her and
Yeah.
listen to her story and her talk about philanthropy. And the moderator for the panel was also a good friend of mine, Quincy Carr, the quality king of comedy, who
Yeah.
is originally from Austin, Texas, and is
Okay.
a big Cowboys fan. I know you're such a big fan of the Cowboys.
No, it's opposite day on the podcast, right?
But Quincy moderated it, and he's hilarious.
Yeah.
And so, it was really special to get the opportunity to listen to them. And so yeah, that was an event that I went to recently that was really dope. So I'm
That's dope.
glad that I had the opportunity to do that. So I did
Yeah.
not get to see Jeezy.
Listen,
I'm kicking myself that I didn't see Clips when they came to Virginia
yeah,
Beach.
same here. I
I
missed them in Fairfax and Virginia Beach, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But look, that's the beauty of this unscripted order thing. I mean, where else can you get philanthropy and Young Jeezy in the same segment?
In the
You know?
same segment, yeah. I
At the
don't think
same
anybody
time.
else is doing what we're doing. In fact, I know for a
Yeah.
fact there's nobody doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's dope. I think what we're doing is unique, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey.
Yes, indeed.
So
Yes, indeed. And as we go forward, we'll get into more topics and subjects. And, next up, we're going to definitely talk about balancing the role in real life, which,
yeah,
is not an easy task all the time.
no, it's not. It's not. But we're cut out for it. We've been doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we love to
Yeah.
share the secrets.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Well, all right. Well, that's a wrap for episode 1 of
Yes, indeed.
Unscripted Order. Join us for the next pod. We can't wait to do it. So I'm B Smalls.
I'm D-Bug. Y'all have a good one. Be safe.
All right, we're out.